You're watching Don't Care 11 News.
Lens flare.
Hey folks, today in the Minnesota news, Jaycee Cooper, a woman, was not allowed to compete against other women in weightlifting, so USA Powerlifting has now been sued into the ground. You know, I'm very surprised to hear that women would not be allowed to compete in women's weightlifting. I guess that makes sense for me, but hey, why is there a picture of a guy up on the screen? Oh, that's Jaycee Cooper. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so Jaycee Cooper, woman, is now allowed to compete in women's weightlifting and just received big bucks from USA Powerlifting in discriminatory damages as well. So the future of the state is very bright here in Minnesota, as more organizations may also have to pay big bucks to similar women as Jaycee. So I'm a male. If I called myself a woman and went and did some weightlifting against women and they didn't allow me to be in there, and then I could just say, okay, well, that's discrimination, then I could make a bunch of money that way. Jesus, what am I doing as a reporter? Oh, am I live? So now we have Hannah Muncie on the line. Hey, Hannah, what are your views on this historic lawsuit win in Minnesota? Like Jaycee Cooper, I am also a woman. I used to play in the Australian male rugby league. But now, after coming out as a woman, and Australia didn't let me compete in the women's rugby league. I just found that to be so tragic.
The Australian Football League has ruled that Hannah is too powerful to play in its elite women's competition.
Good hands, Hannah, great hands.
Because she was once a man.
I'm really excited about this win in Minnesota because now I can move to Minnesota and be in women's rugby there. Rugby isn't that big of a deal here in Minnesota. Well, I'm sure I could do well in hockey or weightlifting or something similar. Okay, folks, now we're live with the Lynx basketball coach, Cheryl Reeve. Okay, Cheryl, so I'm reading your opinion piece here that you wrote for the StarTribune. And in here you say biological men competing in women's sports is not a threat to women's sports. As I've encouraged all the women on the Lynx basketball team, we need to be inclusive towards the LGBT community, and that means including as many trans women as possible in female sports. We have a lot of problems facing women's rights, and a big one is the pay disparity in the WNBA versus the NBA. And that's the real problem facing the Lynx Basketball Association and women in sports. The real problem is not trans women competing in women's sports. Every cent from USA Powerlifting is well-deserved for Jaycee Cooper, as they have been very discriminatory. Okay, thanks for the input, Cheryl. Cheryl, just as a question, I heard the other day that the WNBA brings in like $60 million of revenue, and the NBA brings in $10 billion of revenue. Also, like WNBA has like half the attendance as the NBA, and also the ticket sales are half as much. Is that true, Cheryl? Just me, I was just wondering if less people watching it is maybe a reason why the WNBA players make a little bit less cash. Was I not supposed to bring up the numbers? I'm so sorry, Cheryl. That's my fault. I'm sorry. I'm as sorry as a Canadian on this one. Very good thoughts, Cheryl. Just one idea I had here for you, Cheryl, maybe off the top of the dome. So if you want more trans women competing in the WNBA, let's say, what if we went to some of the very popular players in the NBA, like LeBron James and Steph Curry? If we could convince them to also say, I'm a woman, then they could come over and bring all their exposure into the WNBA, so then maybe the revenue would go up, the pay would increase, and we'd be paying women a more fair wage in the WNBA. So in all of the WNBA's history, there are about 30 total dunks. LeBron James alone has over 4,000 dunks in his entire NBA career. I'm not that good of a mathematician, but just using my noggin here, that means LeBron James has 133.33 repeating times more dunks than the entire history of the WNBA. So I guess if you want more trans women in the WNBA, I guess what maybe we could tell our viewers is you better get your asses to the game, because you're going to see a whole lot more dunking. Cheryl? Cheryl? Okay, well, folks, I guess that's all the time we have today on Don't Care 11 News, where my supervisors certainly don't care what I think, but this is the great state of Minnesota, so stay warm and stay woke. Oh, and I also apologize to Jaycee Cooper for misgendering you. At the end of the day, you know, I think you seem like a great guy. Oh, shoot.